Well, you can't win it all with this game, but you certainly can lose it all. The new biggest game of the Red Wings season is tonight.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Red Wings. I appreciate you all so much for tuning in. I am your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Tuesday, April 8th, 2025. Appreciate you all for tuning in, despite the fact that our beautiful bald friend, Brian Fisher, is, what I say yesterday, drinking water with a straw on a beach somewhere for his honeymoon with his lovely wife. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. We got a lot to talk about on today's show, and we're going to bounce around to a few different items. Obviously, the pretty much entire second half of this is going to be talking about the implications that this game on Tuesday has, previewing this game tonight as you're listening to this, presumably against Montreal in Montreal, and taking a look at the schedule the rest of the way for us, for the Habs, all that good kind of stuff. Also going to start off here by talking a little bit about some roster moves. I'm pretty sure we mentioned this. I'm like 95% sure that Brian and I mentioned at the end of last week that Austin Watson and Dominic Shine got sent back down to Grand Rapids, but just wanted to cover my tracks there and make sure. And since then, Austin Watson scored, had a fantastic game for the Griffins over the weekend. Now, at the end of March, I think it was one of the last days in March, maybe one of the first days in April, the Griffins clinched a playoff berth. I don't remember if we talked about that, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth here as well. Talk about, April and the D, all the teams playing at once, et cetera, et cetera. But obviously a big focus at the end of the show will be on the implications for this game in Montreal. Starting off with the Griffins, though, man, awesome for them to clinch playoffs in back-to-back years, because they went on a drought there. I think it was, 4 or 5 years without a playoff appearance before last season. So really good to see that become a consistent thing. I mean, there was, at the beginning of this regime, at the beginning of the Yzerman era, the Griffins were terrible. I guess at the very beginning, they weren't as terrible, but like once those players kind of got filtered out, that they were really, really bad, a few years back, 3-4 years back. And to see it become is expectation the right word? Like we are now going into, the Wings have such a highly regarded farm system nationally. That's not just a local, we kind of are biased and we love all of our current prospects. Like, no, that's something that is, I don't want to say like universally agreed upon. That seems too dramatic, but like most media outlets that talk about professional hockey and grade, farm systems and minor league teams, almost all of them are pretty much in agreement that the Red Wings have a lot of really good young talent coming through the pipeline. That's something we've given Yzerman a lot of credit for, even though it comes hand in hand with him not getting a ton of credit for the NHL moves. And that's obviously what people care about in the immediate. But I think it's so nice that there is enough talent where they're playing meaningful games before they make the NHL. That's important. That goes a long way. And I'm not trying to say that, these guys are playing AHL postseason games, so they're playoff ready. Like, obviously the NHL is a whole different beast in that regard. But I do think that it's important, especially when you talk about some of the names that are on this roster in the meaningful hockey that they will play and that we want them to play it's awesome. Like over the weekend, Amadeus Lombardi had a 3-point game. Austin Watson also had, I think it was 2 or 3 points in that game as well. They played the Ice Hogs. They had 7-5 victory, a lot of scoring going on in that one. But for Lombardi specifically, that's just somebody that, man, like, do you guys remember when he was in Flint and he was just setting the world on fire? And everybody was like, oh my goodness, like, how excited are we supposed to get? I remember Brian and I having that conversation where we on air, I think it was an off season maybe. And we were talking about prospect rankings and talking about whether Lombardi should be in that conversation for, like one of the top 5-10 prospects in the organization. And we genuinely didn't know how high we should rank a player like that because he's clearly talented and dominating at this level. But that's also the double-edged sword there was at that level. And so for him to not only, rise through the ranks and just get promoted and now finds himself in the AHL, but to especially lately kind of look like he's turning the corner. We've talked to Andrew Rinaldi about Amadeus Lombardi a ton throughout this season, and he has, sung his praises and talked about the development he's seen over the hockey season as a whole from him. There was questions about his size and whether he'd be able to get like knocked off the puck really easily and whether he was quick enough. He's clearly too quick for the level he was at, but is that something that was going to translate as he got promoted more and more? And to see him with obviously a fantastic performance over the weekend, but he has 6 goals in his last 4 games down there, man. Like that is, there's a really good chance that he now ends the season with 20 goals, which maybe doesn't sound like some overwhelming, oh my goodness, especially with 6 in his last 4 games. But this is a guy that going into the year and at the start of the season, it was about acclimating him. And he looked certainly not as polished and as good as he does at this point. So to see him, that's the whole point, right? Is for development over the course of the year. That's literally the reason these teams exist. And to see him kind of take advantage of that was absolutely awesome. So Nate Danielson had 3 assists in that game. Anton Johansson had, I believe it was his first multi-point game at the AHL level, which is super awesome. Just a lot of good vibes down there. And they have, like I said, in one of the last games in March, clinched a playoff berth, and we will see them play competitive hockey, especially, obviously, we all want Kosa to be playing in meaningful, high energy, high intensity, I guess is the word, hockey. And so for him to kind of get that, even if they don't necessarily get that down the stretch here, they only have 6 games remaining. I believe it's 3 this week, 3 next week, and then they start playoff hockey themselves. But it's nice to see organizationally, that's a word, yeah. And to see that this is a talented group. And even with the promotions that we've had over the last couple of years, right? And even this year, Casper becoming a solidified NHL guy, Mazur getting promoted in the middle of this season, like even Edvinsson, obviously a huge loss for this team last year, and they don't miss a beat, really. They're back in the postseason because then you're just filtering in more young talent, and that's the sign of a good, healthy organization. And that is something that, for as much as we are frustrated with the team at the NHL level, and I'm not trying to bring this up to like excuse that. The goal is to have a good NHL product. That's the whole point of this conversation. But it is reassuring, I guess, to just have that and know that in the pipeline there's some talent kind of waiting in the wings. So let's keep the ball rolling here. I want to talk, obviously, again, we will get to kind of the what's the word I'm looking for? I'm just going to move on and pick a different word. What the situations that could arise from winning and losing this game against the Habs are. What is that word? All right, whatever. We're going to go to a break. I'll see if I can think of this word while doing an ad read somehow, and then we'll keep the ball rolling. I want to talk a little bit about April and the D and how awesome it just is. All right, we'll do that right after this. Got to talk to you today about our friends over at Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all of my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's so easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app either. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you can stop managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery and other things that I definitely didn't need to be. And I now budget smarter and save a lot more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can now use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is now also smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off of your first year. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. Said that right. Even when our beautiful host Brian Fisher is away. I appreciate you for sticking with me here, even without Bry. We got some big games coming up this week. Before we get into that massive game that looms, obviously tonight against Montreal, I do want to just kind of riff a little bit about how awesome April in the D is. Like, it is so ingrained in especially my generation, but in really everybody now, right? Like that was something that started when it was Fox Sports Detroit, and really, you know, they had the song back in the early 2000s, the April in the D song when April 1st rolled around, and you know, the Tigers were on, or the Pistons and the Red Wings, and you'd hear that during commercial breaks. It's just, it's not only is it instant nostalgia, but it's something that has really, like, any time 2 or 3 teams win on the same day or in the same weekend, the entire fan base is, oh, it's April in the D, baby. Like April in the D. And it's, I don't know. I just kind of love it. I know that this isn't like super important, but something that crossed my mind while thinking about April in the D over the weekend was, I am asking you, the listener, what is the best April in the D of your lifetime? And that can be for personal, like, reasons of, oh, I just really liked watching this player, but the teams weren't good. Or it can be the conclusion I came to, which I think is 2006. I think that might be my answer. Now, I was a young lad, okay? I was in elementary school, but I've been addicted to sports pretty much since before I could talk. So, like, I was still all about it and singing the song and everything. I feel like 2006, you had Wings that were still really good. And obviously, that's kind of like the in-between era of the early 2000s dominant cup teams and then the 2008 team. But, like, obviously still an incredibly talented hockey team. You're, you know, seeing some of these older legends of the organization slowly reach the end of their careers. It's still really fun and entertaining hockey, and the Joe is bumping every single game without fail. The expectation is still to, you know, make a push and try and bring home a cup. The Pistons are 2 years removed from an NBA title, and in that season still had everybody from the starting 5 was still the same. That was still Billups, Hamilton, Prince, Wallace, right? So, like, you still have all of that core together. They're trying to figure out what the next wave is. Goodness gravy, did we not understand how long that was going to take. But, like, it is that was still a really good team, and that team still made the Eastern Conference Finals, right? Like that team was still just being able to take down LeBron away from was that year? Either way, they made the Eastern Conference Finals, and they were still very close to making it back to the NBA Finals for the third year in a row. That was still really fun basketball. The Palace was obviously fantastic and absolutely packed every single night. That was still when that team really had a chokehold on the city. And then the Tigers, we didn't know it yet, but we're going to go on an incredible run in 2006 and make the World Series. And that was the start of that season. That was April of 06. I mean, that's one of the best seasons ever. Now, again, we didn't know what was to come. We didn't know what was going to be this fantastic season, but you still you knew that it was going to be Curtis Granderson, which this was going to be his first full season and get legitimate playing time at the major league level. Justin Verlander won Rookie of the Year in 2006. It was his first full season. The Tigers bring in some veterans, right? Like Kenny Rogers is on that team. It is so much excitement around the Tigers, even though they had been bad for so long. You didn't know it was going to lead to a World Series appearance, but you knew that it was going to be better. And you have Maglio now, right? And you know that you've kind of turned the corner from that 2003 team. So that is probably my answer. There's obviously some other great ones. It's just, I'm going to let you in on a secret. The reason why it's hard for me to find a better one than 2006. It's the Pistons' fault. Okay. It really is. I love the Detroit Pistons with all my heart. It's really their fault though, because they went a decade of playing pretty much irrelevant basketball. So I know this is a Red Wings show. I know a lot of people and the Tigers have just been so huge here, especially in the early 2010s. That was such a fantastic team. It's going to be really easy to pick, a season in which the Wings and Tigers were both good at the same time. But all three of them, I think you're going to find it maybe a little bit more difficult if you don't care about basketball or about April in the D in general. I apologize for wasting the last 5 or 6 minutes of your time, but it's just something that I really enjoy when April comes around. The whole fan base kind of in unison talks about how awesome it is that all three teams play together and how much that slogan, right? Because any city that has those three sports, though, those are all going to overlap for all of them. But this city really embraces kind of the April and the D slogan. And I think it's awesome. And this one has been great so far. We're only a week into it, but the Wings have remained in contention. That could come to an end tonight. We'll talk about that here in a second. But the Tigers are off to a great start this season. There's a lot of excitement after they came off of a postseason appearance last year, and now the Pistons are in the playoffs for the first time in ages and are good. They're not just squeaking into the playoffs. They're not even going to be in the play-in. There's going to be meaningful playoff games at LCA this year, and that's super, super cool. So I think my point just is if the Wings can win on Tuesday and make it even a little bit closer of a playoff race, you're talking about the potential for one of the all-time great April in the D's. All right. But we got to get through this win on Tuesday. Let's talk about it. This is obviously the biggest game of the season so far. And I said this kind of as a half joke when Brian and I talked about it a couple of weeks ago, but that's kind of a cop-out. Every single game you play from here on out is just the next biggest game of the season so far. That's kind of objectively true. The Wings are, at the time of this recording, 6 points out of the wild card with 6 games remaining. Those 6 games are against the Habs, obviously tonight. The Panthers again, maybe they'll bench half of their entire team like they did on Sunday, and that can be a win again, but we'll see. You play the Lightning, the Stars, the Devils, and the Leafs. That is murderer's row, man. That is absolutely that is a gauntlet, and we've known that. We've been hearing about the hardest schedule in hockey the rest of the way since the Four Nations break, really. but it's staring you in the face now. And you are going to have to not only, this was a thought I had too. Do you have to is probably a stretch. You're going to have to come close to winning out, man. Like you is basically my point. I was going to ask, like, do you have to win out to make it? Like, no, mathematically, obviously that's not true, but you're going to have to come darn close because the Habs are not going to lose out. Let's take a look at their schedule. Okay. Montreal's schedule the rest of the way. They only play 5 games, so that is to the Red Wings' advantage. They will have another game, even though they are 6 points back right now, that they will have an extra game to try and gain 2 points on them. The rest of Montreal's season is the Wings, the Sens, the Leafs, the Blackhawks, and the Hurricanes. Outside of the Blackhawks, those are all really good teams. And so you get a little bit of a glimpse of like, oh, like maybe, right? Maybe if the Wings can win and if all of those other teams can like take care of business, the Sens are ahead of the Habs in the standings, and that game is going to still be very important to Ottawa. The Leafs fighting for seeding, obviously the Canes, the Wings just played and beat. But the Blackhawks are also in there. So, like, they're not – this Montreal team is not going to just lose every game the rest of the season. So, you're not going to be able to, like, coast in and go, 500 or whatever the rest of the way and be able to kind of back your way into the postseason. Now, this isn't even accommodating for, like, what the Rangers do the rest of the season either, right? You're tied with the Rangers at the time of this recording. They are also very much in the mix. I think the Islanders are only a point back from you. There's a lot of other teams that are in the shuffle here. But Montreal has the spot, and you play them tonight. And I think it is safe to say that if you lose on Tuesday, this season is wraps. Now, there's some of you listening that are already like, this season has been over. Even if they win on Tuesday, it's still over. You might be right. And I'm not going to deny that. But to throw and in order to get a touchdown as time expires, you have to still get a Hail Mary throw off. Like, you at least have to try. And in order to have that, even if there is a very small % chance that this works, you still got to be able to get the shot off. And so hopefully they can do that. I am not ready for like meaningless hockey at the end of the season, man. It's just... It's frustrating. It's sad. It's like, okay, we got to talk about this hockey game that means absolutely nothing. And again, I know some people listen to this and they're like, we're already there, idiot. I get it. I really do. Because even if they beat Montreal, it is a long shot. But it's possible. And it becomes a lot more likely if you can win that game. Let's preview it, shall we? We'll do that right after this. Got to talk to you all today about our friends over at Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Well, it's easy. You just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. So stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed Sponsored Jobs puts your post at the top of the page to help you reach the right candidates faster. I've been in a spot where I need to get the right hire, or I need to be that hire, and I need a job. And Indeed was a massive part of that process. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. And now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about it on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed, is all you need. Indeed, you do. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third segment of Locked On Red Wings. Let's talk about the 2024-2025 Montreal Canadiens. They are 38-30-9 with 85 points on the season, in the standings, whatever I was going to say there. This is a very young and talented team, and it brings me no joy to talk about this. Like, this is something that I want to say 2 years ago, like Brian and I first started talking about, like, okay, that, Montreal's not good, but they have a lot of talent come through that pipeline, and they are probably going to be really good and be right in the thick of this division in a couple of years. I thought we still had a year. I thought this would be like, oh, that's a next year problem. I still thought that they would be, in the bottom of this division going into the season. And credit to them, man. They have had a fantastic second half. Nick Suzuki is playing like a true franchise cornerstone. Obviously, the 27-year-old center has 84 points in 77 games this season. And depending on how the last five games of their season goes, he could end with 30 goals and 60 assists on the year, which would obviously be incredible, eclipse 90 points, etc. He is so fun to watch play, and that's why I'm not looking forward to this game, because I kind of have to hate watch. Cole Caulfield, obviously a 30-30 season, could hit 40 goals at 24 years old here this year. Lane Hudson has had a phenomenal season. The 20-year-old defenseman with 64 points. He's third on their team in points. I don't want to just like read you their roster and talk about, like, oh, like this is what this player's doing and this is what this player's doing. But this is a high-powered offense is the reason that I bring this up. High-powered is probably too dramatic. This is not like, one of the 3 or 4 best offenses in the league, but they have certainly been more of an offensive threat than the Red Wings this year. 5-on-5 included in that, obviously. The Red Wings have the advantage on the power play, as they do really with most teams they play. Montreal kind of middle of the pack in both special teams categories. But like the weakness of this team is their defense. Like they aren't exceptional in net so far this season, and they do give up a decent amount of shots. They're 26th in the NHL in goals against a game. Your Red Wings are 22nd. So again, not a lot better. The Wings are still, what is that, bottom 10, bottom 11 in the NHL. But that is how you're going to have to, I know that sounds super ridiculous. Hey, you're going to have to score to win. Shocker. But that is going to have to be, that is how the Habs have lost games, right? Their offense, they have high-powered players on their offense. If you can shut down the stars at the top of the lineup and you can go out there and get shots off yourself, you're going to have a chance to win. Where they can beat you is if their best players are just the best players on the ice in that game and just kind of take over, or if you as the opponent are not able to consistently get in the offensive zone and get some shots on net. So, which has been a toss-up for your Red Wings. Not sure if you've been watching at home, but that is kind of been changing game to game. This is a must-win. This is a must-win for the Wings. If you lose, your season is over. Literally a must-win. Let's go make it happen. I'm not ready to start just talking about meaningless hockey yet. I'm really not. And the funny thing, that doesn't matter to anybody. Nobody, you know what I mean? Whether I'm ready or not does not affect the outcome. But hopefully the Wings can get it done. And at least, I'm not asking for like false hope, but if they can at least just get us to, okay, these last 5 games of the season are going to mean something. You're going to be in the thick of it. There's going to be some excitement surrounding the team still. I don't want, the last 3-4 games of the season to just be like, oh, thank you, fans. It's always lame. All right. I've rambled enough. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you all for still making us your first listen every day. Even without Brian here, we will be back tomorrow recapping this very important hockey game against the Montreal Canadiens. I don't think I have anything else. Oh, rest in peace to Greg Millen, one of the great voices of our beautiful sport here in hockey. Played a little bit for the Wings even at one point in his career, but my generation certainly knows him best as being a prominent voice in the sport, great storyteller. So rest in peace to someone that the hockey community will certainly miss. We'll be back tomorrow. All right. Same time, same place, your team every day.